The Zettai Zetsumi Toshi, or the Dispirited City series, are known in Japan for their survival against the elements gameplay. In these games, you're an unlikely protagonist fighting their way through a weather-torn backdrop with the only mission of escape. What you choose to do along the way is entirely up to you. This series deserves credit for its innovative moral and survival aspects that were presented in 2003 that are now commonplace in modern games and repackaged as original. Through a modern lens, the outsider player would consider Disaster Report to be archaic and poorly designed. But speaking as a gamer that loves low-budget games with high ambition, I was delighted by the free-roaming, close-swapping, compass-collecting, item-crafting, city-collapsing world of Disaster Report. As an early PlayStation 2 game, Disaster Report's gameplay was extremely ambitious, almost too ambitious for the frame rate at times. 2005, Stiver Island. In the game, you play as news reporter and Jinko Gene spokesperson Keith Helm. Keith is totally goofy looking due to Age Tech's weird localization process. In the original Japanese version, he's a Japanese male with brown hair, but in the English version, he's a Japanese male with blonde hair. Alright, blue button-up shirt, check. Levi pipe circa 1998, check. Blatantly Asian facial features, checkaroo. Nick Carter peroxide blonde hair, check. We got ourselves a relatable American man. Let's ship this shit. Keith is a news reporter, and he was trying to evacuate the man-made Stiver Island when all of a sudden, a series of massive earthquakes wrecked the train he's on. So Keith gets up and climbs his way out of the bus. This is where the game begins. So Keith has a life bar which represents his total health, and a QP bar which tells you how thirsty he is. Whenever Keith runs, climbs, jumps, or swims, his QP bar depletes. He can replenish his QP bar by drinking from one of the many water fountains in the game, or by reaching into his backpack and taking a sip from one of his water bottles. Keith can save his game at the water fountains or refill his water bottles. You can get small, medium, and large water bottles. It's really up to you what you want to carry. There's also a slight risk that the water source might be contaminated, so listen to what Keith is telling you. As mentioned, the object of the game is to get the hell out of the city, but that's easier said than done. The city is undergoing constant earthquakes, aftershocks, flooding, you name it. There is a brace button that you press so Keith can hold onto the ground. I call it the oh shit button. Oh shit, the floor's falling, hit the button. Oh shit, the ceiling's falling, hit the button. Oh shit, I'm stumbling like I have Parkinson's, hit the oh shit button. You generally have plenty of warning when the screen shakes, but there are a few destruction events in the game that result in cheap deaths. It's kind of unavoidable your first time through. Did I mention the entire city is crumbling before Keith? Anytime Keith walks into a building, the entire city quakes and falls into the ocean. Keith has just the worst luck, but his misfortune is our gain. There's some really cool set pieces in this game. It's impressive to see the amount of destruction that the PS2 was capable of, but there is a trade-off to all the amount of chaos in this game. The frame rate will take a significant hit anytime there's major action going on the screen, but to be honest, it enhances the gameplay and makes some of the more difficult segments in the game more possible to get through with the slowdown. Just think about an old NES game like Mega Man. You often have to take the game lag into account for some of your platforming. The slowdown actually makes the game a tad bit easier. This is just the PS2's version of that. I have to admit, the game does have some awkward jumping controls. Instead of a dedicated jump button, Keith will run to a gap and automatically execute a jump or climb a wall. It seems weird at first, but you're gonna get used to it after some practice. The reason why jumping is difficult in this game is due to the limited camera angles. Sometimes the angles are fixed and you cannot move the camera at all, and other times you can reposition the camera behind Keith using L2. It's somewhat random. The wonky camera is my only real gripe with the game, but Irem fixed this in the later sequels by giving players full control of the camera, so good on them. As you make your way through the city, Keith can find more articles of clothing. This is one of my favorite aspects, as Keith will end up wearing mismatched articles of clothes, and by the end of the game, he's gonna be looking like some weirdo nu metal cowboy who likes baseball, and that's fucking cool. I love the attention of detail put into some of the clothing items. Take for instance if Keith is wearing some cool shades. When you go into first person mode, the world will be the color of the pair of sunglasses you're wearing. Keith's clothes will also degrade as you progress through the game. It encourages you to constantly switch out different articles of clothes. Most of the clothes in the game don't provide Keith with any additional protections of any kind, with the exception of the umpire's outfit, which protects Keith from taking too much damage. Keith also has a backpack that he uses to store all the items he loots. He starts out with a basic emergency backpack that can store essentials, but it's very limited in space. Each square of space in your backpack can determine your chance for survival later on. So you want to throw away shit you don't need anymore. What's neat is that the developers included a crafting system where Keith can combine items in his inventory to make nifty gadgets like a torch or a water filtration device. Most of the items you can craft in the game are just there for fun and aren't mandatory. Keith will also get backpack upgrades later on, which makes the game much easier because you'll have a ton of space. I know it seems like a minor detail, but I appreciate how the developers have bigger items hang out of the backpack like the crowbar and umbrella. You can tell there was a lot of love and care put behind each decision. Keith can also find hidden compasses throughout the city which he can equip, and let me tell you, this tiny aspect solidified my love for this series. You mean to tell me I can get a little guy with a surfboard that fits in my pocket and he can help me find which direction is north? 10 out of 10, game of the year. All years. Disaster Report sports a total of 7 endings, which are determined by dialogue choices you make within the game. You can play Keith as a generous guy who's trying to help others along the way, or you can completely abandon people and save your own skin. Depending on your choices, you can explore different parts of the city. Playing through the game multiple times is a must if you want to see everything. The game can be beaten in a single sitting, as an average run sits around 5 hours, but if you only play through once, you're gonna miss out on other areas such as the cool swan boat sequence. For my playthrough, I decided on the Karen route, which plays Keith as the nice guy who forfeits his chance to escape the city by helping out Karen. Yeah, you got the ripped dress, you got the pink shirt, and the clearly Asian facial features. You got the blonde hair. Checks out! She's on a mission to find her puppy Gin that's just chilling at her apartment while this shit's going down. Halfway across the earthquake-torn city. Personally, I wasn't caring too much for Karen, but since they mentioned a puppy was in trouble, I dropped everything because puppy trouble. And it's just really cool. I like having a dog. Like, if it came down to it, and I had to save a person's life or one dog, even if that dog was 13 years old and it had parvo, I would probably save the dog every time. There is a basic relationship system in the game where you can choose to give Karen items such as your umbrella and respect her wishes to go down the ladder first because she chose not to wear panties that day.
Can I go first, please?
Why?
No, seriously, she's free vaginate. Disaster Report is unlike any other game I've ever played. Every level offers a new style of gameplay to keep things fresh. In one level, you're using a clothes hanger to zip line over a bus to move it out of the flames, then you get a bus driver hat for your troubles. In another part of the game, you're finding necessary materials to craft a makeshift raft for a small water rafting segment that lasts all but 2 minutes, but you can even pick out the paint job on it. Decisions. You're riding bikes down abandoned city streets to avoid floods, platforming over a pit of fire while city buses fall into the pit and become new platforms, giving old men piggyback rides through a park, avoiding whirlpools while swimming through a lake, dodging missiles from a helicopter, taking a water fountain break. Stealthing your way through a mall to avoid a sniper and a bazooka-wielding psychopath, using a fire hose to destroy a helicopter inside the same mall. The game never quits throwing holy shit moments your way. Just look at this guy over here in the raft. He's trying to help you get on a boat to escape the city. And how do the developers reward him for his trouble? By dropping an entire hotel in one solid chunk on him. Even though Keith is in an unbelievably bleak situation, the developers made sure to include many lighthearted moments and didn't have to shoehorn in some grim dark story and shooting segments just because. Well, at least until much later on into the series. These lighthearted moments are what kept imitators like I Am Alive from greatness. Disaster Report rewards its players' survival and exploration with compasses, and so bad they're good cutscenes.
You know too much. And I hate people that know too much. You're persistent, and you must not live. Ready to die for me?
Albert!
What?
You're my friend, remember? Stay with me a while longer.
No!
It's not a AAA big-budget Michael Bay film, but more of a low-budget early 70s Japanese kaiju film, without the kaiju in it. I would love to see this series make the jump to the current generation game consoles. There was an attempt back in 2011 to bring Zettai Zetsumi Toshi 4 to the PlayStation 3. It was set to be the biggest entry in the series, making use of the cell processor to generate living cities and destruction and compasses in HD. But unfortunately, on March 11th, 2011, a real tsunami and earthquake hit Japan, and a few days later, Disaster Report 4 was cancelled. That's divine irony for ya. But fret not, survivalists. Series director Kazuma Kujo bought the IP rights to ZZT and is currently announcing the newest entry for current generation consoles. I'm not holding my breath for localization, but a man can dream.